Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
I'm Brittany Pacheco.
I'm Frank Cooper.
Tristan Jones.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss the 5th episode of the HBO series, The Last of Us. The episode titled Endure and Survive, which we learn in this episode comes from a comic book in this world. It's also Troy Baker's sign off from the official podcast. So if you're watching The Last of Us, you definitely should check out the companion pod hosted by Troy Baker, who is the voice of Joel in the video game series. But enough about that podcast. Let's talk about our podcast. Let's get everybody's overall thoughts of this episode. Brittany, what did you think about Endure and Survive?
Just like Yesenia here in the chat, shout out to Yesenia and Amber in the live chat right now. Appreciate y'all being here. This episode for me is the best episode thus far in this season, the series right now. I felt all the range of emotions from start to finish, but especially like the last 15 minutes or so, it tore me apart. It tore me apart in ways I didn't think it could tear me apart. And, I didn't mind the fact that there were clickers. There was a new species, if you will, of this infected. But yeah, this episode really just hit it out of the park. And again, there were so many feelings. The fact that once again the showrunners slightly deviated from the game, but if you're going to deviate, make it work, and they made it work. Absolutely made it work with this character of Sam. I loved it. This episode is number one for me right now. Frank, what about you?
Like you said, Brittany, it was very, very tough to watch. It took me 2 days to watch it because I love action, I love violence. I find it really, really hard to see little kids die. It really puts me through the emotional grinder. And when Sarah died in episode 1, and I even knew she was going to die because when you saw the promos, Ellie and Joel, and you know she's not going to survive long. And even knowing that, it was still hard to swallow that death watching it on screen. And same with Sam. Watching that was really, really tough. And it kind of took me into an emotional dark place. And I'm not saying the episode wasn't great. It was just too heavy for me. And I'm gonna let you guys watch the next episodes before I watch them because I can't watch episodes like that. It was just too dark for me. I like the Bill episode better only because it gave me a perspective and insights on the infancy of the apocalypse, what things look like, the recluse of a man who just didn't trust the world and seeing him find love. That was beautiful to me, even though it was sad as well how they ended, very Shakespearean, but it gave me insight of what it was like to survive 20 years in this apocalypse world. This episode was good too. I just can't. It's just too much emotion for me. I can't see death like that in that lens.
Tristan, what are your overall thoughts on this episode?
I thought it was the best episode of the season so far. This is the episode that if I was introducing somebody to this show and said, "Hey, watch The Last of Us," just sit here and watch it. This is what this show is about. It would be this episode. It had the cathartic, emotional moments between, those intimate moments between the characters. It had the exposition enough to give you backstories on like the key things, like Fedra and the hunters and how that revolution, resistance began. You got the complete depiction, or not deviation, but like straight depictions from the game. So as a gamer, somebody who's played the game, you get that level of satisfaction, and then you get the action at the end, like the clickers, and you finally get to meet the bloaters. Like it had everything like that. This is The Last of Us, like a great encapsulation of what this show is. And it had loss, right? But that is a part of the story, is that loss is so immense and it's so inevitable that everybody's kind of biding their own time, and that's what this endure and survive shit is. It's like, yeah, you want to survive, but you also have to admit that survival is futile, right? It's like Sam had leukemia. Like, something was gonna take him at some point. You know what I'm saying? It's just the reality of that cruel world. But this is the best episode so far. You can make the argument that episode 3 was better acted. I think they're about even.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. Like,
Lamar Johnson and Kevion Woodward were just as good as Nick Offerman and Murray, my guy Murray. So like, this was the best episode. I just want to keep watching it. That's how I know it's the best episode.
Yeah, I agree. This is my favorite episode. I think it's also the best. I mean, this show is just special. Like the acting, the writing, the story is like superb. And just think about it. Like we're just 5 episodes into this series, and they've already had 2 like standout award-winning type episodes. That's like rare air. Like not even Game of Thrones, the first season of Game of Thrones. If you look back at the first 5 episodes, those aren't the best 5 episodes even of that season, I don't think. I mean, there might have been parts and pieces that were really cool, but like you've had 2 absolutely knock it out of the park episodes on this show. So yeah, I mean, it was just a phenomenal episode. And in episode 4, we were introduced to 4 new characters, right? And unfortunately, we saw them all meet their demise in episode 5. And I think it's appropriate. Let's focus. Let's start at the beginning of this. Let's focus on Henry and Sam. We get their backstory as the episode opens. It's about 10 or 11 days before the end of episode 4, and you see the fall of Fedra in Kansas City. And yeah, I mean, like the way they shot that and told that story, because at the end of episode 4, we didn't know who these people were. They just looked like they were, they got Joel and Ellie, caught up on them while they were sleeping, had guns to their heads, and then we weren't really sure what was going to happen next. The way they set up their storyline, and it only took about 5 minutes to give you that backstory, that understanding that they're on the run for some reason, and we get that later on. But I thought just right out of the gate, it shows you how brutal this world is now that Kansas City is quote unquote free. And the 2 actors, like you said, Lamar Johnson and is it Kevion Woodward, who is actually deaf. They found an 8-year-old kid who's deaf, and I mean, those 2 actors, the way they just from the beginning, you're like, wow, this is a different way to tell this story. And Tristan, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the video game, Sam wasn't deaf, correct?
Turn your mic on, T.
My bad. Said no, he's not deaf, and he's actually about 5 years older.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, the way that, like, once again, like Brittany said, like they deviated from the video game storyline, and once again, I think the deviation was for the better, and it really gets this episode started. Brittany, what did you think about the big brother, little brother relationship with Henry and Sam, especially at the start of this episode?
I mean, you understood why Henry did whatever he did in order to protect his brother. He was going to go to whatever lengths necessary to keep his brother alive, because there's no mention of parents or any other family members. It's just literally the 2 of them. They're the last of their family, one would assume. So when you also throw in the element of a child who has like a disability, he's deaf, that child solely can rely on one person. And I think that added element of feeling like I really cannot let this kid down really amps up their storyline. Like this really is about survival. And I think the showrunner, and I can't remember the creator's name, but he said he wished he had thought of it first when he was building the game, right, and telling the story of the game. And I think it's tough, but it's a reality. It's a reality for so many thousands, millions of children out there who have to rely on someone else to assist them with whatever case they may have. And so to, on top of that, add the fact that Sam had leukemia and Henry was going to go to whatever lengths necessary in order to get the medication that Sam needed, which meant that he was an informant, right? And he gave up Kathleen's brother, which is why Kathleen is so hell-bent on getting Henry because of what he did to her brother. And so, I have a very special relationship with my brother. I only have one brother. We're 13 years apart, but I understood. I would do anything for my brother. My brother would do anything for me. I totally felt the relationship between these two actors was not only real on screen, but real off screen at the same time. Because I think inside the episode, they all said the actors around this little boy, they all started learning ASL just to make him feel, welcomed and be able to communicate with him. So I think you without meaning to, you just start building this relationship and you want to protect. And I think that's what's beautiful about this whole storyline. It tore me apart at the very end of this episode, but man, the storytelling of this was just fabulously done.
Yeah, making the child deaf really makes the story. It adds an extra layer because not only are they signing, but also he has that. I believe it's called a magic slate, what he wears around his neck, where he can write something down and then flip the page and then it erases it. I really think that added to just the creativity of the show. Tristan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a perfect deviation because it increases the stakes even more. On the official podcast, Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, we're talking about how seeing Sam and Ellie and Henry and Joel and like the way that they communicated with each other, it just would have been redundant, right?
Yeah.
Just because they speak the same language, right? So taking away Sam's ability to talk, or not his ability to talk, but like making him deaf, just added a different layer of connection, right? Because Ellie and Sam don't just bond because they're close to the same age or they're kids and they're play, like they bond through. We know they bond because she picks up on the language on the ASL, right, in a way to make him feel comfortable. So it works in so many different ways. One, it kind of shows a distinction between the way this group of basically family, this team, this duo, how they communicate with each other, and then we have this more plain way that Joel and Ellie communicate with each other. But then it also, again, it illustrates like how much Ellie's looking for a bond, right? Whether she wants to or not, and she can't help it. Like she picks up on this language and like she makes an effort to like use this language to show Sam like just the connection that they have with each other. So I love the deviation. It's a very smart deviation. And again, like everything else, it's only made the show better. So I have full confidence when they deviate from the game. And plus, I really only look at the game as like this blank slate because it's a different medium. So you have to make different choices within this medium. So a lot of these deviations are necessary, right? I don't even look at them as like, oh, we just could do this for the sake of it, but like they're necessary. Like this is a TV show, and right for this medium, the deviations have been on point. They've been relevant, and like I said, they made the show better than what I thought it could be.
And in the game, Henry and Sam, they're not playable characters, correct? They just kind of aid Joel and Ellie. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, once again, like to make those characters, to kind of flesh out their storyline and to obviously change what you do in the game. I think that's really a credit to what this show has done. And I don't know. I thought the actors were phenomenal in this episode. I mean, they were like right away you feel like this is like family, and they're trying to make it out of Kansas City some way, and it does seem like it's insurmountable given that, in the opening, you see Kathleen and she's interrogating these informers, and she finally gets someone to give up that, they know where Henry might be, or they know who he's working with. And it was that doctor, Edelstein, who we see, in those first 10 or 11 days before what happened at the events of it, the end of episode 4. You see that he's helping Henry and Sam, and they've only got a limited amount of food. And then you see, obviously what happened in what was it, episode 3, when we saw him get captured, and then he's killed by Kathleen, or maybe that's the beginning of episode 4. I guess it was episode 4. Yeah. Then they realize they're on their own, and then they just happen to stumble into the situation that Joel and Ellie found themselves in when they were ambushed. And having those two groups meet that way was I don't know, I thought it was really entertaining. Frank, what did you think about how Joel and Ellie and Sam and Henry get together?
I thought it left a level and fabric of anxiety, because at the time you didn't know who Sam and Henry were. I mean, the only thing I knew about Henry was that Kathleen was looking for him, and something happened to her brother, and Henry was probably the cause of it. So I didn't know if Henry was a federal agent, another villain from another faction. I knew nothing about him. So how they met up was very creative. I'm not sure that's how they met up in the video game, but it did leave an element of anxiety. The synergy between the four of them was beautiful too. I mean, even how they met, the level of just distrust, and like, Joe and Ellie went through something in episode 4 of like surviving from the resistance. Henry and Sam are trying they're surviving within the city. They can't even get the city because of how everything's on lockdown. So the level of distrust and how it matriculates to, okay, we're all looking for the same thing. We're looking for an out. We're looking to just survive. How it matriculated throughout the episode was beautiful. It will be the last time I watched the episode. It was just too heavy for me. But how they met was very creative, though.
Yeah. Brittany, what did you think about how the standoff kind of ends? They agree that Henry and Sam have guns drawn on Joel and Ellie, and basically Henry's like, "Hey, I've never done this before. What's the next step? Like, if we don't shoot you, obviously you don't hurt us. Like, so we're good." And then you get the whole there's actually a little bit of comedy that's mixed in where, as Ellie says, Joel's asshole voice almost like, continues this like tension until she kind of de-escalates it. What did you think about that scenario?
I mean, Joel's within his right to not trust these two boys. I mean, they have guns pointing at their faces, and with Henry, obviously, he's just so quick to admit that he's never done this before. It's like, okay, are you saying this because this is true, or are you saying this to just blindside us? Like, what is your motive? That's from the perspective of Joel. Ellie's just kind of like really quick to say, "Yep, let's just trust these guys. You don't hurt us, we don't hurt you." And I totally would understand where Joel was coming from, but eventually everything is subsided. They break bread, if you will. I don't know what it is that they're eating together at some point, but the very fact that in that moment you see Henry is not a violent person. He has no intentions of being a violent person. And we learned that a little bit afterwards, that he says he's never killed anyone before, and he had an empty gun pointed at his face. So, I mean, he's going to do whatever it takes in order to survive, but like at the same time, he's not willing to do whatever it takes in order to hurt somebody else, like if that makes sense, right? So all he wants to do is just take care of his little brother. He wants to find a way to get out of the city, take his little brother, and just go and live as long as possible. But just to see that dynamic between Henry and Ellie and Joel was just great. And then Sam's kind of over here like, what are they saying? Like, what's going on here? And to fast forward just a little bit, when they're discussing the plan in order to get out of Kansas City, and Sam is over here writing doing whatever on his little pad, and he gets his brother's attention and asks, what are they saying? And his brother, while signing, says out loud, they agree that they're going to help us escape. I mean, talk about like being quick, smart, and just putting them on the spot, right? And the plan is to use tunnels, which, being from Houston, we've got tunnels in our downtown area as well. And I thought, oh shit, this is going to happen.
I thought the same thing. I was thinking about the same thing.
I was like, we've been down those tunnels. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, like, should that ever happen, this apocalyptic world of infected, I mean, are we going to have to resort to living in those tunnels? But I'm going to put a pin in that. We'll come back to that later, because I want to talk about what lives underneath the ground shortly.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. Yeah, so you mentioned the tunnel. So basically the deal is Henry's like, look, I'll show you the way, but I need you to clear the way. Obviously, he understands. He saw what Joel did in that ambush scenario where Joel took out those guys and was protecting Ellie. So he knows that Joel is the man who can kind of get him through there. I like how quickly he figures it out. You see Henry, that day where they met, or they saw Joel and Ellie the first time, they had run out of food. They're trying to figure out, okay, what do we do next, right? And immediately after he sees what happens, he tells his little brother, he's like, look, new plan, right? And so automatically the wheels are turning. We've got to do something else. We got to change this scenario. So I thought that once again, the actor Lamar Johnson, which I don't know I've ever seen him anything else, but he was great. I mean, he was really great in this episode. What else has he been in?
I just said he's Canadian.
Oh, he's Canadian.
Ah.
I don't know about him.
I wonder if this might be like one of his first thing. I mean, he's I assume he's pretty young. I mean, he's playing like what, a 18, 19-year-old maybe in the show.
Yeah, I think they lowered the age in the show. Well, obviously they lowered the age because Sam is much younger in the show than he is in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's no, he was great. Really, everybody in this show is phenomenal. Frank, what did you think about when Henry admits to Joel that because Joel's like, they're talking about what happened, and he's like, look, like if you're doing what you're doing to protect your brother, I understand, like, I get it. And then Henry's like, hey, well, the reason why all of free Kansas City's after me is because I flipped on Kathleen and you turned her brother in for exchange of Sam's medication. What did you think about that part of the story?
Not even post-apocalyptic times. I think that's just life. Like when it comes to family, loyalty, and sacrifice for your loved ones, you're gonna do what you got to do. It's no different than the destitute family that's looking for the next bite to eat, and they steal from a grocery store, or they rob a convenience store. It's a level of relativism, of relative nature. Is it wrong? I mean, I guess it depends on what side of the fence you're on. And that his brother had leukemia, so I think for him, as any mother, as any father, or any close loved one would do whatever they got to do to like try to secure the health and safety and wellness of their loved one. So I would have done no different. I would have done what I had to do. I mean, if I had to sacrifice myself for my loved one, then I would. But I think because Joel didn't say much when he said that. He kind of just he kind of changed the subject or whatever. But I think because what Joel's been through as well, and the level and the times he had to kill people, maybe for federal or for whatever faction, he did things that he didn't want to do either, but he did for the simple fact that he wanted to survive and he wanted to live. And I'm sure he would have done the same for Tess if Tess was around. He damn sure would have did it initially for Tess when they first met Ellie, and Ellie had that the mark on her arm. So I think it's all relative, and you fending for your own and fighting for your own.
And you can see the cognitive dissonance like playing in his head. Like on one instance, what Henry did was indefensible, right, to Joel, because Joel also lives by this code, right? But on the other end, like, he is absolutely a protector, like, by nature. So he does understand, like, having no other options and trying to protect this person who's completely and solely dependent upon you. So I mean, this is another like weekly shout out to Pedro Pascal and like the facial like performances that he's doing, like conveying several different emotions within a matter of seconds. Honestly, like that's Pedro shining right there.
And to talk about Kathleen a little bit, I get her too. I get, that was your brother. I mean, and the writers and the director did a great job of like that snapshot of her in their bedroom as a kid.
Yeah.
And like her going through her past with her brother, and like, this room seems so much bigger to us when we was little kids. You kind of get a glimpse of how close she was to her brother. They look like, from the shot that it came from humble beginnings, and all they had with each other, no different than Sam and Henry. So I love the juxtapose of both those perspectives of each family, of how close they were to each family. And no doubt, Kathleen would have done the same for her brother, same as what you saw with Henry and Sam.
Shout out to Marcy on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to read out here. Marcy says Kathleen was willing to kill to avenge her brother, but she couldn't understand why Henry did what he did to save Sam. And that, for me, that was like a punch to the gut when she finally confronted them. And I know I'm fast forwarding just, ever so slightly, but for her to say to Henry, when it seems that they were cornered, Sam was going to die anyway. Like, he's going to die regardless. She's like, you should have just let him die. And I'm like, okay, I know this is coming from a place of grief, a place of trauma, a place of, you probably don't mean what you say, but it's coming out anyway.
And Brittany, real quick, that's when I started watching. So last night I watched that episode. When she said that, I turned the TV, I went to bed. I couldn't finish at that point.
No, I totally can understand that. I mean, that's rough. Like, that's rough to hear. Like, regardless, male, female, mother, not a mother, that just comes off as very heartless, of course. And especially when it's a child. And Henry says that he's a fucking kid. Like, what can a child do? This child didn't ask to be sick. He didn't ask to be deaf. He didn't ask to get cancer. But you're going to do what you can in order to keep your loved one around. I mean, he I guess chose the lesser of two evils. He gave up someone who he did say he was a great man. He was the leader of the resistance, but I gave him up so I could keep my brother alive. And that's who I've killed indirectly, if you will. And Henry does feel some type of way about it. It's not that it's coming from a place of maliciousness and haha, look at me, I killed someone. It's like he's got some sort of guilt because of the choice that he made. And in that kind of life that you're living post-apocalyptic, damn. that's all I can say.
And that's the one part I'm glad that Sam was deaf. Because let's say that Sam wasn't deaf and he's behind the car with Ellie and he hears that from Kathleen. Just the acting it would have took for him to just break down fundamentally would have killed me. I wouldn't be on this podcast today had he actually heard those words from Kathleen right behind that car.
I'm right there with you, Frank. I'm right there with you. I mean, you've got to be a really defeated individual, a really cold-hearted person, or have turned cold-hearted to say those things and ultimately mean it. Just I was thrilled to see her how her story ended. Let's just put it that way.
But Kathleen is what happens when, like, Kathleen is like, what if Henry like felt some type of animosity about his brother, having to care for his brother, and it turned him against the world, like, and he didn't have that empathy. Like, at least Henry has the empathy to say, hey, the choice I made led to like some level of trauma or some level of tragedy, and he's willing to take responsibility for that. I don't get Kathleen, because I get obviously wanting revenge or wanting justice, as she calls it, but that justice turned to vengeance.
Yep.
And it's while it's completely natural for humans to want vengeance, or to express or feel vengeance, you can't do that as a leader, right? Especially as a leader that's trying to build something, right? It seemed like her brother was trying to build something, and it's
Right.
from the little we know about Cat, well, the little we've seen in the 2 episodes, or we know a lot, but she was better at destroying things, right? Destroying Fedra, like, and
Right.
kind of setting this new world. But like basically, she turned like their little resistance into Fedra. It's the
That
new
was the
Fedra.
crazy part. That was the crazy part to me. It was like, and it makes me wonder what it would have looked like had Kathleen survived. Let's say Kathleen survives another couple episodes. I think you probably would have saw a riot turn, because all the things she was saying to Perry was the guy name, is that his name Perry?
Perry, yeah.
So in the beginning of the episode where they brutalized Fedra, and like they have like the select number of people left from Fedra in that holding cell, and she's like, your due process is going to come. We're going to put you on trial, things of that nature. She walks out the room. She's talking to Perry, and she's like, "Are we going to put him?" And Perry asks, "Are we going to put him on trial?" Nah, fuck that. Just kill them all. Like that's being a lead. Like that's being a leader. Like you just lied to these people. These people are your hostage. They're at your very whim. And would your brother be proud of that? Would you? I like you say, Tristan. We don't know Kathleen's brother, but like you say, it sounded like he was trying to build something that was just, that was fair, and that gave people a second lease on life. And I don't think her brother would have been proud of the decision that she made at that point early on in the episode.
So what we do know about the brother is, everyone to a man said he was a great man, and they said he was very forgiving. Even, Kathleen references that, basically when he was in prison because Henry, flipped on him, the brother told Kathleen to forgive. And she said, look what that forgiveness got him. He got him killed. And, and Perry's one of these people also who he's like, yeah, your brother was a great man, but he didn't change anything. You did. So while, she kind of becomes like a supervillain, honestly, like this. I mean, obviously it's this insane world, this post-apocalyptic kind of world. And she has this one terrible thing happen to her, and that just turns her, basically evil. But in this world that actually works to her benefit, or at least, what she thinks is the right thing to do in that moment, which is, overthrow Fedra and make Kansas City free. But then, of course, like you said, they just become the new Fedra. They're just Fedra without the name, right? They're doing the same stuff. It's, the payback is what they're all about. So
I thought Kathleen, it seemed to me, I think Kathleen she always had a darkness to it. And like her brother's death just was the last thing
tipping point.
Her sanity back, holding her from being insane. There's some, I won't say foreshadowing, there's some kind of allusions to her being a little bit off, or just not always being there, and like her brother dying being that last trigger.
Her brother probably kept her balanced, if you will. And when you don't have that balance anymore and you're free to behave and act the way that you want to, you're given an inch, you're going to take a mile. So for Kathleen, that was in such a short amount of time that we got to know her. I mean, that was a lot of story, like a lot of just not character development per se, but just to understand more or less her motive. And it was all about revenge. That's all that it is. She can call it whatever she wants to call it, but in the end, it was ultimately revenge.
Yeah, I think if you're willing to kill innocent children, I mean, I get how you feel about Henry. I mean, whatever, but had those zombies not come, she would have killed all those kids, Ellie and Sam included. And I feel like when you get to that point as a person, when you erode that much as a person to where you think it's okay to kill off innocent children, you're no leader at all. You just more of the same. I think you said that, Brittany, of being the new, oh no, Justin, you being the new Fedra, and yeah, it was time for that bitch to go.
Yeah, like Marcy said in the chat, the revolutionaries turn into what they fought against. I mean, we do know that from history. So
I have a question. So when the zombies arise from the ground, was that from the same underground tunnels that Joel and the crew came out of?
I don't think
it's a basement. I think it's like just a like, because like that, obviously that truck that was like meant to like, you know, clear out the pathway of the road, it crashes into that home and then it kind of sinks into the ground. I mean, there might be a tunnel there, but like it seems like there were maybe dead bodies buried in a basement or something, or
Dead bodies? Golly.
This was foreshadowed in
episode
last
4.
episode.
Yeah.
Episode 4 when
yes.
in this episode 5, Henry tells Joel that Fedra pushed the infected underground. Like they forced them all underground. Okay. So
15 years prior. And I want to know, how did they manage to do that? And how did they manage to keep them underground?
I don't think they were as strong 15 years ago. I think over time they just get stronger, more athletic. That little zombie ninja Powerpuff Girl, man, like did a backflip somersault into the car, jumped out of the motherfucking car, attacked people from the back. Like she ran like a 440. Like
that was some extra shit. I was not prepared for that.
They look faster and more spry, more impervious to bullets. I mean, invulnerable to bullets. Like,
yeah. Still want to know how Fedra was able to manage that and then keep them down there for 15 years. And this is where I'm going to go back to what I said previously in our pod about how Kathleen, she knew about the problem underground, but Henry was more of a priority. And she did say that to Perry. She said, he's not, 7th on my list. He's priority number 1. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, this is not going to end well in your favor. And it didn't. It ultimately didn't.
Well, I mean, you even see how, her demise, you have this zombie outbreak and they're killing people. And I mean, Perry just got his head ripped off by the bloater. This huge, like we talked about, it was like an Incredible Hulk version of these infected people. Well, like she's there, and instead of like being aware of her surroundings of what's happening, she goes straight for Henry. Like all she's thinking about is getting this revenge.
Tunnel vision.
Not even. I mean, she's probably got to know like she's not going to survive.
Right? Like that. Good play on words.
Tunnel vision. Yeah, there you go. That's good.
I do what I can.
I mean, she's solely driven by revenge, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, she pulls the gun out to kill them all. And this clicker, the little girl that we first see enter into this abandoned car where Ellie's trying to hide, and Ellie is able to escape from this clicker. Yeah, doing all these contortion, moves, and just that was creepy. But the irony of it all, where Kathleen was just so hell-bent on Sam should have died. You kept him alive. He should have died. He's going to die either way, only for Kathleen to be killed by a child clicker. I don't know. It's just poetic for me personally. And I was totally okay with how that happened.
So in episode 4, when Perry shows the room with the ground moving with the zombies on the ground, that was inside the fence of like downtown, right? Where they're at. So they put bodies underground, within the confines of downtown, and bodies underground outside the confines of downtown.
Yeah.
It's fucking stupid.
Short answer.
That's so dumb. Well, why would you put bodies under the ground within the same right above where you're stationed at, where you live at, where you have your army at? That made no sense to me.
Because people are stupid.
And I imagine the fact that they moved. I mean, they moved all about. Like that's another thing that's been kind of told to us is we have these tunnels because of all the development. And yeah, I'm sure they moved all throughout the city.
Right, because
they looked about 200 strong coming out of that.
Yeah, you cannot effectively kill infected unless it's gunshot to the head or fire. Basically, I think that's how zombie lore goes. That's the only way to kill them. So if you're just going to push them underground, they're going to survive.
Yeah, like what was Kathleen's 15-year plan? Just like, oh, hopefully they just stop breeding.
Dude, she didn't even have a 12, 15-day plan. Like,
yeah,
like she would have been a horrible politician. Like, what the fuck? So my question is to you, Tristan. So with the bloaters, they had no interest in even trying to affect you. They just want, like what he did to Perry. He just decapitated him. Like
bloaters destruction. Like
they just show destruction. Okay.
Smash.
The complete destruction. Oh my God. So I remember I said, like, hey, there was a level on the game that literally took me about a week to beat. Like I would just pop in, like, okay, today I'm gonna try this strategy now. Like it's because there's a level where you're in the basement of a hospital and this bloater's just chasing you from room to room, and you just have to like run, pick up weapons, make weapons, boom, boom, boom. Like it takes forever. Like you have to shoot this dude about 15 times, burn him, throw a Molotov cocktail, like. And what the show is showing you, like, hey, you can't even shoot him. Like that's not even an option. You can shoot a bloater after like doing some other stuff in the game. If on this show, it's looking like you can't even do that. So, hey, man, good luck with that. Like, I don't think we're gonna see many bloaters this season. Just from the interviews I've read, and I've not read but heard. But when they do show up, it's complete destruction. It takes everything to kill them.
They look like the ringleader too. Like when he came off the ground, like it was like a grand entrance come off the ground, and he just kind of did his own thing, and they kind of like went all the way behind him, but like you could tell like the camera shot looked like this is the main encore. This is the ringleader here. You got to deal with this cat. Is that how it is in the games too?
Not really, because you normally encounter bloaters by themselves, right? There might be like some clickers and stuff around them, but like for the most part, it's bloaters by themselves. But two things we have to understand about bloaters. One, they have been the longest infected, right? So like 10, 15, 20 years, right? So, and what are they made of? Is they're completely covered in fungi.
Right.
Completely. So if the way the show is positioned, the fungus is like it creates a hive mind. So if the bloater has been infected the longest, it can probably communicate the most with the infected around it. So it's not something that's complete. Obviously, it's not explained in the game because it's not a fungal thing in the game like that. But that's my theory.
It would make sense too, because from what we learned in the show is that if you stepped on an active fungi, it pretty much sends a signal to all those who are infected, and it works virtually as a network, no matter how short or far the distance may be. So I'd imagine with the bloater, the theory of the bloater may be more in tune with that network than your average clicker. Yeah, that to me makes a lot of sense. I can get behind that theory.
You know, we're talking a lot about the action set piece toward the end of the episode, but I want to talk about how that set piece begins. I want to ask Tristan about this. So in the show, we see that, you know, Henry and Sam and Joel and Ellie, they escape the tunnels, and then they're attacked by this sniper. And then Joel obviously finds a way to take out the sniper. He tells the guys, like, hey, just put the gun down, like, and just give me the gun and just stay here for an hour. That's all you have to do. The guy doesn't do that. Joel has to take him out. And then he hears that, you know, the guy was on a radio with Kathleen. So obviously her group is showing up. In the game, how does that sniper part work? How does it play out? Or does Joel become the sniper, having to take out,
Yes.
you know, the clickers to save Ellie and Sam and Henry? Or
yes, kind of the same. There's slight deviations. One in the game, this happens in daytime, okay. And the infected come out of they just come out. A truck does crash into a house, and the infected come out of the house, and it's like a shitload of them. Yeah. But yeah, Joel he leaves them, goes up to the house, kills the guy. It's not an old man. Like that's a very important deviation that the show makes, right? Because it shows that these are just regular ass citizens. These are not, trained militia military people. Like, these are just old people or regular citizens that have been armed and given these tasks and stuff like that. But yeah, Joel has to protect Henry, Sam, and Ellie from clickers, infected, not federal, but whatever group, this hunters group that's chasing after Henry and Sam. So it's like all at the same time. So the only big difference is it happens in daytime, and you don't get a bloater during this time.
Okay.
So I have a question, and this mainly is for Justin and Frank because we're the non-gamers in this situation. So when we see that the clickers have surrounded the car that Henry and Sam are hiding under, at any point did you guess either one would have been scratched, bitten, that kind of thing? Frank?
Yeah, I thought it would be Henry, because he's more the protector. I thought he would have risked his life to save Sam and Ellie, and got affected at that point, and kind of like Joel and Ellie taking care of Sam for a short period of time. I didn't see, because they didn't show it, but I didn't envision Sam getting bit or being scratched. So that made it even tougher of seeing that child. Especially the breakdown, man, of like him writing on the X and sketch and like asking Ellie if she's scared, and then that's when he unveils that he's gotten infected. And I was at that point, I'm holding out hope, like, okay, I know Ellie is immune to it. Maybe they can oxidize her blood somehow and fix this quick, and have this quick fix, which again was a good part of the show where they show you that even though they have an idea that she's immune, they still know how to like oxidate her blood and get to a point where they can like eradicate the illness from somebody else who just recently got affected. So I was holding out hope. And the next morning when she wakes up and he's just standing out in the window, I was like, yeah, he's affected. But I thought it would be Henry.
Okay. Justin, you?
On the first watch, I watched this episode twice. The first watch, honestly, like, there's a lot of action and I was like into it, but I guess I just like
Didn't cross your mind.
No, because I was like, as long as they were safe, that's all I was worried about. But then like on the second watch, you can kind of see where maybe it happened because they're both under the car. There's like 3 or 4 of these infected people kind of coming at them, grabbing at their legs, maybe biting at them. So it makes a lot more sense on the rewatch. And also on the rewatch, like, you notice that whenever, after Joel and Ellie and Henry and Sam get out of the situation, they find that abandoned hotel or motel. Whenever Henry comes to tell his little brother, he tells him, "Hey, you need to go to bed." You can tell, like, even right before that, where Ellie is sitting next to him and I don't know if they're reading something, if they're just talking, and the kid, he's like, he has no expression. He's just like, he knows something bad has happened and she doesn't know yet. And Henry doesn't know at all. He's like, "Hey, you need to go to bed." And then, then Henry leaves the room and then she like wakes, she's like, "Hey, get up. We're going to talk about this or whatever." And that's when, Sam tells him like, are you, they have the conversation about being scared. And like on the first watch, I didn't pick up on that as much as far as like his expression. And even the part about how, Sam asks Ellie to stay up after she gives her, cuts herself and puts it on his cut and says, "Hey, my blood is medicine," which I thought was like for 2 kids to communicate was pretty well done. But whenever
this is like one of those, like, again, deviations, or just, I will say, an addition. In the game, Sam does not know he's bitten, right? He just, the same thing. They go to sleep, they wake up, and Sam is infected and he attacks Ellie and so on. The rest of it is kind of the same. But just adding that different dialogue again, like, just to stamp that connection between those two before the end. Again, we got these two basically in one episode, and you feel that emotional connection. You feel an attachment to Henry and Sam, and me, like, even me knowing what was going to happen at the end of this episode, still feel attached to both of those characters, especially Sam. I guess again, adding the death part attached you to them even more. I still like that cathartic feeling. Like I shed a couple tears even on the second watch. Like again, like absolutely know what was going to happen. So masterful acting, masterful writing. Like it's something that, again, everything they've added to this show, added to the story from the game, has been superb.
No, I agree, and that was gonna be my next question to you, Tristan. Is the way that these events played out was more or less true to the story, but after hearing your explanation, they've slightly deviated or added the more emotional and personable elements of it, which I think with storytelling, it's leaps and bounds, like so well done. And while you were explaining, I was looking at Frank's expression here on camera, and it was just like, it looked like it was tearing him apart just to hear about what happened in the game as opposed to what we saw in the show. And this is where I say, especially in the last 10-15 minutes of this episode, I literally was just hands like over my face the entire time, from the moment that you knew the clickers and bloater came out from underground to the moment that this episode ended. I was like in shock. Like I was not emotionally ready for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the fact that Sam is deaf, like, you know, he's sitting on the side of the bed, you know, when Ellie wakes up. And don't y'all think that, like, if he had the ability to hear, he probably would have already attacked her? Maybe. Do you think that's part of it? Because like it's like he knows, obviously, you know, this is happening, but because he doesn't have that ability until she goes over and touches him, it's like that kind of like, you know, then he reacts.
That woke him up, if you will.
Yeah, I'm not saying he would have sat there forever like that, but I do think that making him deaf really made that even more of an interesting, you know, way to tell that story.
For sure, because eventually when the fungus is really taking over and you're turning into that clicker, you lose your eyesight.
Right.
All you have to rely on is your sense of hearing, I believe.
Right. Exactly.
And because Sam already has lost that ability, he's got to rely on a different sense. And yeah, that was gut wrenching. Like it killed me to kind of know that, because obviously the conversation between the two and him asking, stay up with me. And it's like, okay, you know, she's not going to stay up all night with you. And you just knew at that moment. And what happened next, I think, is what
she tried though.
Me. Because she tried. I give her that credit.
Chair, yeah, I mean,
she tried.
They're worn out. This is a crazy world. Yeah.
But it's what happened next that absolutely destroyed me. Of course, Sam goes and attacks Ellie. It falls into the other room where Joel and Henry are, and Joel has invited them, hey, come to Wyoming with us. And it's like, cool, great. You know, we're going to do this. And I mean, Henry reacts, grabs the gun. He's watching his little brother attack Ellie. He's got Joel at gunpoint, and it's like, what do you do? What do you do? Frank, I'm going to ask you this, and I know this is tough. I mean, did it make sense? Did it make sense for him to do what he did?
For Henry?
For Henry, yes.
You know, I think when it comes to emotionally tied, strenuous events, I don't know if there is a right answer, because when you're going through something as traumatic as it is, you're not rational. There's no rationale to it. It's not, you're not watching the screen and saying, shit, if I'm Henry, I would have done this, because you're not, as a viewer, you're not connected to the boy that how Henry is. Even as an ongoer walking by, let's say this ongoer is walking by and they see all this play out, they can say, oh yeah, you gotta save the little girl by killing the boy. I don't care what you say. You can't put the gun on Joel. It's easy to have that rationale when you're not in it. And I think when you're in it, this is your little brother. He's dependent on you and relied on you most of his short life. It's impossible to make the decision. It just is. And I think what saved Ellie was the short connection and synergy they had in that episode. They slept together. They ate together. They made plans to leave together. The scene before, Joel had just told Henry, like, hey, man, y'all want to come to Wyoming? I don't know how I'm going to get there, but shit, you can come with me. So I think the connection that Henry made with Joel and Ellie throughout the episode helped him make that tough decision right at that moment of killing Sam. I don't think he makes that decision if he didn't spend the time that he did spend with Sam. We saw a similar situation, and I don't know, Tristan, if you remember, in Walking Dead, it might have been the governor. His wife was a zombie, and he didn't kill her. He kept her locked up in the prison cell. He couldn't do it. He couldn't give her that fatal bullet to end her, because all he had was the connection of their marriage previously, the kids they had, and the love they shared. And I think it was the same way with Henry. The only difference was that Henry did spend that time with Joel and Ellie prior to making that tough call.
It's slight disagreement. I don't even know if this is a disagreement. I definitely think that the short connection that that group before made over the course of the day, I guess they were together, helped. But I think again the same impulses that Henry had to protect Sam are the same impulses that made him naturally shoot Sam when he was attacking Ellie, right? Because what did he say to Kathleen? Like, it's just a kid. Like, he cares about kids, and not just his brother, but the concept of protecting, those more vulnerable. And yeah, he has to protect Ellie because that's just in his nature. He's a protector too, just like Joel, right? Like, they have the same impulses there. But yeah, even him being like overcome with that grief, or just being faced with that traumatic situation of, hey, you see my brother's attacking Ellie, and the only way that he would be attacking her is if he's turned, right? Like, that natural mode kicks in of like, I have to protect this child. And it happens in a split second because that's something that's natural.
But I think Henry wrestling with the fact of what to do was the reason why he's so close to Sam, and like the connection he had with Ellie, even though it was a short connection. I feel like
I don't think he's wrestling with what to do. I think he's like, I'm the one that's going to do this, not you.
And that was going to be my next question as to, and again, I never played the game, don't know if this is exactly how it played out in the game, Tristan.
Exactly how it played out.
That's tough. So it's one of those things where, do you agree with the idea that it was his brother that had to kill Sam, or should it have been Joel? And then what would have played out afterwards had it been Joel? You know what I'm saying? So, because ultimately with Henry having killed his brother, and then he's looking bewildered, like, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? And then decides he's going to take his own life because he can't cope with it.
He has no more purpose.
Yep.
Same thing with Bill. Like, he had no more purpose. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his whole life, he had no other family. His whole life at that point, like, running out, trying to escape Kansas City was not about saving his own ass. It was about creating a slightly better existence for his brother, right? Just trying to create the best environment for his brother to grow up in. Like, and once he lost that, it's like, what did I do all this for? What am I escaping for? Hell, what the fuck did I give up this great dude that, could have possibly helped build a better environment for people to live in for if not my brother? And that's my whole purpose in this godforsaken ass world at that point. So,
yeah.
And whenever Henry shot Sam, I knew he was going to shoot himself. I knew it right away. I was like, oh man, this is the way it's going to end. And then he did it. And it's like, wow. I mean, like, pretty powerful stuff. And again, so what this show does so well is these characters, Bill and Frank and Henry and Sam and Kathleen, like, these are characters that we've only had on screen for an episode or 2 episodes max. And they feel like almost like fully fleshed out characters. It's just,
you know why?
So impressive.
Because all these characters are reflections of our 2 main characters in some type of way.
Yeah.
When we get to the end of this episode, after Henry kills himself, Joel and Ellie are, basically digging graves or finishing off graves that they made, and Joel is just kind of staring. He's not just staring at the graves; he's looking at what could possibly be he and Ellie.
Yep.
Right? If something goes wrong, if anything happens, right? He's looking at the possible graves of, Joel Miller and Ellie Williams. So every single one of them have been a mirror. Henry and Sam are a mirror of Joel and Ellie in different ways. That's why we feel like these characters are so prominent, even though we may only see them for 1 to 2 episodes, because we're seeing the same traits in Joel and Ellie in pretty much every scene.
Would it be fair to say after this episode, when Ellie goes and gets the little writing pad that Sam used, leaves it on the grave, walks away, and then Joel sees what she wrote, and she wrote, "I'm sorry." Is it fair to say that she in that moment kind of resembles Joel because he couldn't save his own daughter, and Ellie couldn't save Sam with her blood that's medicine?
Yeah. I mean, it looks like they're becoming opposite. They're becoming each other. Like Ellie, and this happens a little bit in the game, but Ellie, after Sam's death, becomes a lot more shut off, right? And she starts to build up more of a wall. And you also see around this time, Joel, his wall is we've
breaking down.
His wall is coming down while hers is going back up, because
I could totally see that.
As Joel has been saying, like, hey, you shouldn't have to see all these things. You shouldn't have to do all these things. Right. And because he knows what seeing and doing all those things does to the soul, it hardens the soul. He's going to see that. We're going to see that in Ellie, I think, over the next episode. So,
yeah. And as we see at the very end of the episode, the last thing we see is Ellie's telling him to come on. Like, which way is west? We got to go. And
she wants to put it behind her.
Right. Right. She's ready to move on.
She witnessed a pretty horrible death and then a suicide at that. Like, I don't know how anyone could cope with that. I mean, I would probably bottle it up too and just go. But man,
in the span of a few hours, she almost died at least 8 times. Like,
exactly.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, she's now hardened to this world, like it's really a kill or be killed kind of.
Yeah, because it's funny because she was so excited to enter the world. She's never known anything outside of the QZ or wherever it was that she was raised, and she's just so enamored with the world. And Joel was already telling her, "You've never been out here. You don't know what it's like." And now she's really getting a sense of that. And Tristan, I think you're right to say her wall is being built brick by brick, and his is slowly crumbling down. And that shift is going to be very interesting to watch in the coming episodes.
Fucking kids will do it to you, man. Fucking kids.
Damn kids.
So my last question about this episode, I think Tristan, maybe you can answer this. There's a part in the middle of the episode where they find a little safe space where there's kids, there's like a kid's table, and they find a soccer ball in a wall, and the kids start playing there. And you see a name written on the wall. The name is Ish. Who is Ish? And listening to the podcast after the companion podcast, the creators basically said like they're not really going to go into it in the show. It doesn't sound like. No. But who is this person in the world of the game?
Nobody. It's a story you read. In the same thing when they go into the tunnels. That entire tunnels part, outside of like the dialogue, a lot of the dialogue is lifted straight from the game. But they go in the tunnels and they find like this little, what we could see was a little society. But you get the backstory from that from reading a note, right? And it's like this 2-page note talking about this character named Ish, who was basically the creator of that society. Right when the outbreak happened, got people together. They had like little schools and stuff like that. They built a little community, and it slowly crumbled like every other community during the apocalypse. but we don't see this character at all. You know, we see the paintings and the drawings and the stuff like that, but this is a complete backstory that you read in a note.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So let's do final thoughts of the episode. Frank, what are your final thoughts on this one?
Tough to watch, dark, though brilliant. Good acting, more insight on other characters outside the main two. Would never watch it again. I kind of put it in the same category as Game of Thrones season 5, episode 6, when someone gets raped. I can't watch it again. It's not. I don't have a good time when I watch that episode. Same with this episode. So it's going to be one of those episodes where first time watching, I'll never forget it. It leaves an imprint in my brain, but I don't care to revisit that again.
Fair. Brittany, final thoughts on this episode?
It really pushed the story along. I mean, the Bill and Frank episode is brilliant in its own right, giving those characters a love story and getting to see that in the time of when everything is just gone to shit. You know, you can find love. And with this story, the love was already there between these two brothers, and Henry and Sam were going to endure and survive as long as they possibly could. And the ultimate outcome of these two brothers was devastating, of course. You knew it was bound to happen to some degree. Damn good writing, damn good amounts of action, and just kind of people, Kathleen, getting what she deserved. And I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted, because you kind of more or less expect that story to be what it would be like in an apocalyptic world, right? Just the chaos, the devastation, the people turning backs on one another and what have you. That's what you expect, but you obviously want to root for hope, because that's what keeps people going in times of such as these. So it had it all. Like Frank, it's tough. It's a tough watch. It absolutely is. I don't think I'm going to go back and rewatch it, if ever. But damn, did it leave an impression?
No doubt.
I might watch this shit 8 more times. The fuck?
I like how you said in our chat, you're like, oh yeah, on the second watch, technically 5th. I'm like, God.
I might watch this shit a good 20 more times. This is the best. This is the best episode of the season. From the writing, the action, the acting, the world building, everything about this shit. Like I said, move the story forward. It had the emotional reactions, but hey, again, it just continues to espouse that this world is fucked up, you know, and tragedy and trauma does horrible things to people, and it turns them into the darker, more basest parts of their nature. And you see
it can. It doesn't always, but it
doesn't always, but it has a great track record. Like it win percentage is very high, right? Yeah. Especially in chaos, and especially when systems break down, right?
Chaos is a ladder.
Chaos is a ladder. And Sam is an illustration of us when we don't protect our children. Like a lot of things failed Sam. You know, it wasn't even just the apocalypse. Like our healthcare system failed Sam. Like, you know, people who are supposed to protect
corruption,
everything failed Sam, right?
Yeah.
His death was inevitable, right? But this everyone's is, you know. So this episode was amazing. Like you said, like Justin said at the beginning, it's rare when you have 2 episodes in the first 5 episodes of the season of a series that could be Emmy worthy. And again, this show continues to make me look smart, because I promise excellence from the rest of us, and it's continued to get better as the season goes on.
#, humbled.
Tristan was firing up the hype train for this show a while back. This has been he's been mentioning this for a while. I agree with him though.
Like the Kansas City Chiefs, Houston Astros, Golden State Warriors. When I tell you greatness
Tristan,
is coming, goddamn it.
what
It's
what
coming.
what did I say? What did I call you on social media? No Damas.
You know, it's just
Like
Thomas, man.
you know things. You know, he reads and he knows
I
things.
drink.
He
Hey,
drinks and he knows things.
yeah,
I don't know why I said reads, but you do read.
I do read.
Yeah. So no, Tristan. Hey, he got me. You know, I wasn't keen on this show. I gave it a shot. I'm like, all right, I'm fucking hooked. You got Marcy too, so like, you're doing something right.
yeah, no doubt about that. My final thoughts are, what everyone said is valid. This is a very dark episode. Obviously, seeing a brother have to kill his younger brother then kill himself is awful. But this episode excites me because, like we said
You are
before,
twisted.
no, that's listen to what I'm saying.
That
This
was
is the mid-season episode of this. So imagine, like, I didn't think they would top episode 3. They topped episode 3 2 episodes later, right?
Yeah.
Imagine what the penultimate episode of the season or the finale. What's the finale going to be? You can't tell me it's like the people from HBO, they know what they've got. They know this is a hit. Obviously, they knew that before they put it on the air. So if we feel this way at the mid-season point, imagine what we're going to feel like at the end and what they're going to do at the end of this season. So I'm excited.
The finale might tear apart like lives. Like it might send people to therapy. Like
Then I'm coming after you, sir, and you're paying for my therapy sessions.
Fine.
Good God.
That's fine. If the season ends like I think it might end, and it's gonna fuck people up. And yeah, in a semi good way, but it's gonna fuck people up. It's emotional. Like this, again, this is the most emotional game. I've never played an emotional game. Right, The Last of Us is the first one that it satisfies the action urges, the world, traveling urges, and like the emotional urges, and it's on a course to being like just one of those defining shows of a generation, I think, in my opinion.
Exactly. And so looking ahead to episode 6, looks like we have Joel and Tommy are going to be reunited. Him and his brother are reunited, but it doesn't appear to be a happy reunion. So that's what we have to look forward to next week. It seems like just from the mini trailer that I don't know if Joel and Ellie are going to have to escape Wyoming as soon as they get there, but it seems like some shit's going to go down, and I don't think Tommy and Joel are going to be on the same
they're going to
team.
be at odds for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Especially with Ellie in the mix. It might be a bit of a repeat of what happened when Sarah was still with us. So I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah,
there's
we'll
a
be
lot left unsaid between Tommy and Joel.
Yeah,
makes sense.
We'll be back to talk about that next week. But before we leave, as we're recording this, it's the day after the Super Bowl, and obviously, with the Super Bowl, we had a lot of big movie trailers. There's only one though that I really want to talk about really quick. Brittany, if you wouldn't mind, let's throw up some logos and some graphics. So, the Flash movie, I think, was the best trailer last night. I was excited. I was hyped for it. I think it delivered. Before I really break it down and let y'all know the information I know, which is probably way too much, I want to get everybody's quick take. Brittany, you watched the trailer. What'd you think about it?
I hate to admit it. It actually looks good. I hate myself for actually watching the 3-minute trailer and be like, God damn it. Like, there might be some hope in DC after all. But I have no faith in Ezra Miller. That's just none whatsoever. The bringing Michael Keaton back as Batman and just that scene alone, I'm like, this is fucking cool. Fucking cool. I just hope that they make sense of the story. We've talked about this before here on the Watchers about time travel. You don't do it right, you don't explain it right, it's not gonna end well. So it might get messy. I don't know. I don't have 100% faith in DC. I mean, this was also shot a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever.
2021. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like this is I've got concerns, but the trailer does look cool. I'm not gonna lie. Tristan, your thoughts? Or yeah, Tristan, Frank, your thoughts?
I thought it was a nice trailer. I thought it was a good trailer. Again, full disclosure, I have very little plans on watching the Flash. I've never cared about the Flash a day in my life in general, but it was a good trailer. It was interesting. It was entertaining, but you know, the one thing DC can get right is their trailers, right? So, shout out.
That's Frank, you're he's over here giggling. Frank, what are your thoughts?
The one thing they can get right there is their trailers. That's an iconic Watchers line. I'll never forget that line. No, I have to extend on that, man. The trailers always look good. Justice League look good. Aquaman looked great. Like stunningly, they looked wonderful. I ain't gonna watch the shit, but it looked good. The only DC property I'm gonna watch is Joker. I'm after what they did with Titans. I never want to see anything from the DCEU, DCU, whatever you want to call this shit ever again in life. I gave this property multiple years of committing my time watching this shit, and I was unfulfilled on 99% of their movies outside of Joker the last 4 years. So I won't be watching it. I hope y'all enjoy it, but I'm not fucking with it.
Well, I think it looks great. There's 9 superhero movies coming out in 2023. My prediction is this is going to be the best and the highest grossing. I really believe that. I think that like Michael Keaton coming back, and I think that's going to bring back a lot of nostalgia. People love Keaton as Batman. It's not just like a cameo. He's a big part of the movie. It's kind of like there's going to be multiple versions of the Flash. There's going to be multiple Batman. You've got Ben Affleck's Batman. I guess it'll be his final time as Batman, more than likely.
Thank God.
Michael Keaton will play Batman. There's rumors that maybe Christian Bale has a cameo. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if that really makes any sense. But the story is the Flashpoint story from the comic books, where Barry decides to run back in time to try to find a way to save his mom. And as the trailer showed us, the one world where she lives just happens to be the world where Michael Keaton is Batman. So, and I think if it sticks true to the comic book, when he goes back in time, he loses his powers. And so then Batman has to help him, get his speed back so that he can actually go back and save the world, save the future, But the inclusion of Supergirl, which I thought she looked really cool in this trailer, that's a kind of a unique take on this storyline. And there's no Superman in this world, but you do have Zod coming back from Man of Steel. Zod obviously was killed in Man of Steel. We have him coming back because I guess this is like taking place, before Man of Steel happened. So I don't know. I'm really excited about this movie. I think it looks great. You had the Danny Elfman song, the music cue. It was like a piano version of it. That was awesome. All these different suits.
Try to get us a shot, man.
Yeah, if they stay true to the animated, the comic book and animated film that's on Netflix, or it might be on Warner Brothers now, I'm not sure, but
it's on HBOMax. Yeah.
Okay, Superman is he's there, but he's not Superman. Like he's under government protection.
Right.
So they find the ship where Kal-El sent him, and the government confiscated him. Yeah. So he's under like these sun rays, these artificial red rays, to where he can't be Superman, but right. He's there. It's just he hasn't been unlocked yet. But the animated film is incredible. It's to me the best animated film they've made. It's as far as the film, as far as DC Warner Brothers, I have about 98% rate that they're gonna fuck it up somehow in some form or fashion. They've done most of their films thus far. Even rebooting it, I'm sure they'll fuck it up somehow.
Well, I mean, the one good thing about the Flash is that he can reboot the whole universe, and that's what James Gunn said a few weeks ago when they talked about this movie. Like, he's going to reset the universe so that when James Gunn starts up his Superman and that kind of stuff, you're going to have a new Superman, you have new characters, and maybe some of these characters are going to continue. But I think that I think this will be the end for a lot of these characters. So I'm glad they're bringing back Michael Keaton. I'm glad that Ben Affleck gets a send off. Affleck's actually going to be in the blue and gray suit. So the first time we've ever seen the blue and gray Batman suit in live action. That's kind of cool. That's never happened before. So I can
Yeah.
tell everyone else is thrilled about this, but I am super excited for it.
Give it a
Trust me.
shot. Might give it a shot.
We just scoring lovers, Justin, man, in the world of loving comic books, bro, and movies, man. I've been hurt too many times, bro. Have faith.
I feel you.
I understand. Well, it'll be in theaters June 16th. So we will be reviewing it. I will definitely be reviewing it. Some of us will be reviewing it. Some of us might not be, but I think it's going to be a really big deal. Just to guess. So anyway, that last thing. Did anybody watch the Guardians trailer? What did y'all think about the Guardians trailer? I'll go to Brittany first.
Not impressed. Sorry. I know it's supposed to be the final in this Guardians saga, if you will.
Yeah.
Y'all know how I feel about Guardians. They're not my favorite. I think the holiday special was like the best thing I've ever seen from them, but I honestly couldn't care less. Sorry.
Frank, what do you think about the Guardians trailer?
I loved it. I mean, I love Guardians. I think James Gunn, that's one of the more Marvel properties I didn't know much about prior to the movies coming out that I just love and adore. I think Batista's awesome in that. I think he brings a level of levity and comedy to the role. Y'all know how I feel about Fat Pratt, now Rip Pratt. I mean, I think he's a wonderful actor. I think his comedic timing is incredible, and I can't wait to see how the green girl. What is her name?
Gamora.
I can't wait to see how she's implemented back in this main timeline. I know they lost a lot from the original Gamora dying this timeline, so I'm very interested in seeing that. And the nerd in me, man, I want to see Mr. Goldman himself, bro. He was very huge and pivotal in the Thanos Infinity War series, and that he's not in that. I want to see what position he's going to be in this movie and probably moving forward, because he's one of the more powerful entities in Marvel. So
yeah, you talk about Adam Warlock, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Tristan, what'd you think about the trailer?
I gotta watch it again. When it came on during the game, I'm pretty sure we were talking about something. Like, we kind of talked through it, and I didn't go back. So I saw it visually. It was done. I need to go back and actually listen to what was said in the trailer.
Yeah, it's the second trailer. They had a trailer a few months back. I thought that trailer was actually a little bit better than this one. I like this one also. It's definitely setting up that we're going to lose some Guardians. Someone is going to die in this movie, maybe multiple characters. It definitely, both trailers for the Guardians so far have been, they're playing on our emotional, like there's emotional cues in both of them that it seems like we're going to lose some people. So, and it is the final one. Obviously it's James Gunn's final movie with Marvel before he's already taken over DC, but before he's exclusively with DC. So I thought it's a pretty good trailer. I enjoyed it. I think that that movie's going to do really well also. So anyway, that's it. Any other trailers or anything else y'all want to mention from the Super Bowl?
Congrats to the Chiefs. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Also, what is a catch anymore, right? Let's eliminate the forward pass. Let's just run the ball, because no one knows what a catch is anymore. Like,
I don't know. Are you talking about the fumble that the back had? It was a game wheel. Some of that catch. It
could be that one. It could be one of the Eagles tight ends who patty kicked the ball out of bounds and it was a catch. Was it Devonta Smith who dropped a ball against the 49ers that they gave him a big gain? And then this game, after they reviewed it for 17 minutes, they realized that as he's juggling the ball, running out of bounds, he doesn't have control of it. Like, I was like losing my mind, because I just get so sick of like the inconsistency with the calls. It's like, figure it out. Like, this is not that difficult. Like, when we watch this over and over and you see like the ball's moving, and like, it's either you have it or you don't, right? Like,
Devontae Smith's catch was funny to me because Greg Olsen was giving color commentary on both the huddles, moving back and forward. I think the Chiefs huddle moved back and forward 3 times. The Eagles moved back twice. It took that long to where 22 men on the fucking field are moving back and forward on where either the catch didn't happen or where the catch did happen for a first down. it was such a debacle, man. The referees did a very poor job on the elongation of like how long it took to like look at these calls.
Yeah, but it's a great game. I enjoyed the game. So also great episode of The Last of Us. I think they made the right decision not going head to head with the Super Bowl. But if any episode could have gone head to head with the Super Bowl, it was this one. This was a phenomenal episode. And now that you know what we think about the episode, Brittany, how can people let us know what they think about it?
Join us in our live chat. So I was to say live streams, but it is a live stream. It's a live chat. Join us, and also don't forget to subscribe and like this video. It helps out our channel. We appreciate everyone who did join us today. Yesenia, Amber, and Marcy, thank you so much for being here and sharing your thoughts. Also, y'all, we've got almost a week's worth of pods coming this way. Tomorrow, you can join us again to hear from Frank, Tristan, and Marcy on the latest from 1923. I hear it's a great episode. Also, Wednesday, join Justin and myself for the MCU rewatch of Ant-Man and the Wasp. And y'all, I'm so happy that Netflix U is back. Part 1 dropped last week. I've watched it all, but we're going to do more episodic type breakdown. So join us this week for episodes 1 and 2. So that's going to be exciting. That's this Thursday. But also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Watchers Basement. Help spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell people on the street, tell whomever about us, and use hashtag Watchers Basement. Also check out our audio podcast available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Thanks to Anchor.fm. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating.
Thanks, Brittany. So for Brittany, for Frank, for Tristan, this is Justin saying we'll see you next week. We talk about episode 6, Last of Us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.